she said, I'd like you to talk about when the mic is on. And I said, well, I can do that, but really, my specialty, like I said, I'm not a professional broadcaster. So what I would do, I'll try to share some stories with you guys about what it's like to be on television as an athlete. I think that's where I think everyone in the room is trying to go. But I use the term expert loosely, but I'll tell you a quick story. When I was my first year of broadcasting, so it was 2001, Brad Gushue had just won the Olympic trials, which we were fortunate to televise, and I was at an event out in Kelowna, and it was the Canada Cup, and like I'm doing today, I was playing as well as commentating, and I done an interview, and the one thing to remember is that the mic is always on, and so did an interview on local cable, and they asked me what Brad Gushue's chances were of winning an Olympic gold medal. And I said in the interview, because I think he was 1-3 in the Bonspiel, and after they won the trials, they hadn't won maybe 2 or 3 games, and so I said, he's in tough, he's going to have a hard time winning, and I didn't think much of it. Another question came along, and then that was it. So I went out, played the next day, and I was sitting in my suit in the arena, and I get a tap on the shoulder, and a lady says to me, she goes, I didn't like what you said yesterday. I had no idea what she was talking about, and she says, well, you said that Brad Gushue's not going to win a gold medal. I said, that's not what I said. She goes, well, just because you went to the Olympics and just because you're on television doesn't make you an expert. And I went, kind of does, actually. That was the first, I just kind of thought, it was like, yeah, I guess I kind of am an expert at this sort of stuff. But I didn't, this isn't my profession. Like I said, I kind of backed into it a little bit. Just to give you my history in broadcasting. After the Olympics in 1998, back then it was Don Duguid and Don Whitman, and you guys would know who those names are. Maybe some of you might remember Don and Don, but the old guys in the back do.
That's why they're at the back.
That's right. So I got a phone call and was asked to audition to replace Don Duguid as the color commentator, and I just went out. I had no idea what I was doing. It was pretty nerve-wracking, but I think I was just young and dumb enough to not really care. And for those of you who've watched my broadcasts, I use the word honest when I'm doing my broadcast in terms of what the expectations are from an athlete's perspective. And the same thing, I've had parents and coaches come up to me afterwards and said, you're pretty hard on whoever it was that the game was on. I said, well, I've never said anything on air that I wouldn't have said to the player themselves. So when you do watch curling, and I'm doing exactly what you're doing, I'm yelling at the TV because I don't like the call that's being made, or I think they should make this type of run back. So the best way to describe my way of doing it is when I was sitting at home watching the broadcast, I do the exact. When I watch TSN and watch the Brier, I do the same thing. I yell at Russ. I yell at Cheryl, who's doing the comp, say, come on, just give him a little bit of a hard time. Or not so hard time, but just when they're waffling, Russ Howard is Russ Howard. You guys won everything there is to win. It's okay if he says a call is bad. I think that's fair. As I said, it wasn't my real intention to become a broadcaster, but it's been a blessing for me. I have to say, it's opened up, curling opened up a lot of doors for me. I didn't start curling because I wanted to go to the Olympics. I know things are different now. I just got back from Rio. Actually, I was down there doing some golf coverage, which I've never done before, which was fun. I'm a golf pro by trade, so I was able to do a radio show down there and do some golf. So I had a lot of the athletes. I met lucky enough to meet the Canadian golfers, Graham Dillette and David Hearn, and they were asking me what the Olympics has done for curling. And what the Olympics has done for curling is stuff like this. So what I said, when I started curling, and most of the coaches started curling, Olympics wasn't part of the program. So it's really changed the way we look at the sport, but it's also raised a lot. It's changed, the game has changed so much. My coach, when we won the 1986 Ontario Juniors, that's dating myself, the concept of having a coach wasn't, we had no coaches. We had to get a level 2 coach to come with us to the nationals. So there was one lady at our home club who had gone through the courses, and sweet old lady, she would have been in her 70s, I think. Joyce Weeks was her name. And her job at the fifth end was to come out and tell us the dirtiest joke she could think of. That was the extent of coaching, and she would come out, one of the 11 games in the round robin, she came out and gave one of our guys a hard time because I think he was over, 2 sheets over, not paying attention to one of the games. But coaching has changed, and the Olympics has raised that bar so high now. And it's great in so many ways, but I kind of miss the old days a little bit in terms of how much fun we used to have. I have kids now who curl, who have been coached since they were 8 or 9 years old, and it's kind of a mixed blessing. I think the skills and everything of the athletes are so much greater than they used to be. But the biggest, most important thing is you have to still make sure you enjoy yourself, make sure you have fun. It sounds like a cliche sometimes, but if you're not enjoying what you're doing on the ice, it's hard to be successful. And I tell that to my Scottish men's team. Tom, the Brucer, who's the skip, he's burned through a few teammates over the years. As I'm sure people in this room would know somebody, no one in particular, of course, but you know that there's certain personality types that burn through teammates. And so he's got a young team, and we're trying to make them enjoy the game a bit more. And because you know what, everybody can throw the rock, everybody can sweep. There's so much more to curling than just going through the mechanics. And strategy obviously has a huge bearing on things as well. But I think enjoyment of the sport, it's a game after all, is huge. And I'm glad to see everyone out here already. It blows my mind how early we're getting on the ice these days. But to get back to why where we're trying to go here is that all of you are trying to get to that next level. How many in the room, by show of hands, have played more than one provincial championship? And any who have gone to nationals here? A few. Okay, good. So a few, but not that many, right? So it's one of those things where getting up the ranks is sometimes it seems a long way off, but all of a sudden, you want to be prepared for what's coming up. So this happens in every aspect of life, whether it be curling or whether it be, for me, it was broadcasting. So when I got into broadcasting in 2001, there were nerves. There are nerves. There always are. We spent a lot of time, Joan McCusker and I, Joan won an Olympic gold medal with Sandra Schmerler back in 1998. So Joan and I started in 2001 together, and when we started, I thought, if I get through Torino, 2006, that'd be a good run. So here I'm 15 years later, still broadcasting, so it's a good thing. But when we started, Joan and I, we did what we did in curling. We practiced, we were in the room rehearsing our openings, got to the rink, and of course the camera came on, and we kind of froze. And I saw that a lot. First event we ever broadcast was the 2001 juniors. Brad Gushu won the juniors that year. He was just a kid, 17 or 18 years old, and Suzanne Goody was the women's champion that year. But when the lights came up and lights came on, as much as we prepared for it, Joan and I just weren't ready to do what we needed to do to be good broadcasters. So the same thing would apply to curlers. So when you get in that spotlight, when the nerves are on, the best way to be is to be yourself. And so again, I talked about Don Whitman. Don was a legend of the game, and legendary broadcaster. He was I think he'd been broadcasting curling for 45 years when I started working with him. Dear man. So he kind of took us under his wing and took our notes, ripped them all up, threw them away, and said, okay, you guys don't think anymore. Don't think anymore. I said, okay, I can do that. That's right up my alley. And he just kind of led us through. And what he was our mentor. He was our coach. And so, when you know somebody in the sport who, if you have a coach here, I know all the teams now have coaches, but if you can lean on some people who have some experience, you can really make your your life easier, your journey easier. I get a lot of questions about whether we're the 7-second rule, swearing, all that sort of stuff. There is no 7-second rule. When your mic is on, the mic is on. So if somebody drops an F-bomb on national television, it's going out to everybody. So I always have questions. The three biggest things are when the microphone is put onto you, the first thing most people worry about is their language that they use on the ice. So do I swear? Will it go on air? Yeah, it's going. How comfortable is it? I was given a sample pack here to do it, but if you're fortunate enough to make it to Sportsnet show, I joked with Virginia earlier that we have people to do this for you. They will hand you the mic back. It's very light, in fact, so I always just put mine in my back pocket, and then it gets strapped onto your shirt. But people aren't worried so much about the comfort stuff. They're more worried about what their language is. And there's a good trick if you think you're going to lose it out there. You just turn it off. That's the easiest way. That's the easiest way to do it. I've done that a few times when I was playing. If I get into a provincial championship and we're getting waxed, microphone off. That solves a lot of problems, actually. But a few good stories from our broadcasting. We were, I said, unfortunately, Rio was my 5th Olympics that I've worked at. 2002, 2006, 2010, 2014, obviously, were all great experiences. And by the time the teams reach the level where they're at the Olympics, this is not the first time they're on television. So, for generally speaking, saw Brad Jacobs and Jennifer Jones, especially Jennifer's team. Jennifer herself, of course, an old pro on the microphones, but it doesn't always go as planned when we're doing it. In 2003, the World Championships were down in 2002, where they were in Bismarck, North Dakota. And Colleen Jones was representing Canada. She was in the final against Scotland, Jackie Lockhart. And Jackie's team was playing well, and they were winning, in fact. And but the 5th end comes along, and Lee throws the stones. Second stones come to throw, and we can't find the Scottish second. Like, no clue where she is. So we're live on TV, and interestingly, too, it was sponsored by Ford back then. So Ford had brought 2 or 3 executives into the booth, standing behind Don and Joan and I, and we're trying to figure out where she is, and live on national television, toilet flushes. Microphone's on, she's in the bathroom. Luckily, she wasn't talking to herself or whatever you're doing there. And of course, we break out laughing. The guys from Ford are wondering what's going on behind us, and we explain it to them, and then next thing, out the door onto the ice comes the second, of course, which was hilarious. So we kind of talked through that, and after the game, I said to her, so if there's a tip, if you're going to the bathroom during the game when you have a microphone on, turn it off. It's always a good tip. The other thing, it's not just wearing the microphones, but the other part of it is interviews. So quite often you're going to get interviewed by, whether it's a reporter, just local newspaper reporter. I don't like warning about newspaper reporters, but what you say to a newspaper reporter isn't live. It's different. You guys have grown up in the internet age, so if you put a video on, it's there forever. So the same thing applies to when television, there's cameras on. If there's a mic on, assume it's on. That's the only tip I can tell you. But people know Jen Hanna, who won the Ontario Ladies last year, beat Homan in that big upset. But Jen played in the 2003 Scotties, back in St. John's. And Jen was 23 or 24 years old, came out of nowhere, and made it all the way to the final, playing against Jennifer Jones. And Scott Russell was out doing the interview, the 5th end interview. And this was in the semis, She was playing Saskatchewan in the semis, and Jen was down a couple points. And the usual, how's it going so far? We're playing great, the Rocks are good, and what's your strategy going to be for the second half of the game? She goes, well, you have to think of the cutest, most innocent looking face you can think of and she says, well, I think we have to go all balls out here in the last half of the game, Scott. On CBC, live. And then when she says it, Scott's pro, he's hilarious. He was, all right, there you have it, Don, and he goes, throw it back up to the booth. And Jen says, can I say that on national TV? He goes, you just did. And that was That was awesome. So after the game, of course, again, we're just laughing up in the booth, going, "That's great." But the message the thing I love about that interview with Jen, she didn't swear. It's okay. The expression's a little off maybe, but she was herself, right? She's not. The interview I hate is, go down to the ice and you talk to somebody and how's it going? Oh yeah, we're putting in a effort and the ice is good and it's swinging 3.5 feet and da da da. That stuff is boring. That stuff is, you're guarded, you're not relaxed, you're not enjoying the moment out there. Best advice is when you're out there with a microphone on, I don't think that generally speaking, day-to-day our lives, we swear a lot. I don't know, I thought I did. Some people do. We all know the guy. There is always one, right? I don't know if these guys at the front are laughing. There's always one or two guys, but on the ice, if you're worried about swearing into a microphone, then change what's going on now. Don't, you guys are preparing to get to that next level. So this should not become all of a sudden, you get to a game that's important and you got a microphone on and you have to change your behavior, right? You guys are preparing to be at that next level. I used to swear on the ice when I was a junior. I'm not gonna lie, but I don't anymore, and I learned the hard way too. Junior championship, Canadian junior championship, in an arena, on an end sheet, threw my last rock, didn't get swept far enough, and I basically dropped a big F-bomb in front of a big crowd. And that's okay. That's not the bad part. The bad part is how I made my teammates feel. That's the bad part. So change your behavior. It's not that hard. I mean, to not swear is not that big of a deal. You want to be yourself out there, but come up with a new word. Sugar. Sugar's good. Sugar's a good word. But if you can be yourself out on the ice, you're going to have a lot more. And again, if you think of all of the prep you guys are doing, and I said the coaching, all the stuff you guys are doing, think of it as a stepping stone towards that next level. So when you get somewhere where the microphones are on, you're not surprised. I think that's a huge, it's a very, very important aspect of that whole prep stuff. The other part of it is the Olympics are a lofty goal. Not everybody in this room is going to go to the Olympics. I can say that with a fair amount of certainty. Hopefully, a few of you have the opportunity. I think it'd be fantastic. But there are also other ways to get to the Olympics other than curling. You can broadcast. Or my first experience on the broadcast side was in 2002, and I was disappointed is the wrong word, but you're there after competing in 1998. And I get there, and I'm now in the booth, which again is a great honor and great experience. But I still would rather have been on the ice. And I was kind of moping around a little bit, and as was Joan. We're both new to the whole thing. And one of the technical guy who runs cables, who we had worked with before at CBC, and he said, "What's going on?" He said, because I was kind of just before smartphones, so I wasn't looking down at my phone, and I was kind of looking around and. A few of the guys on the ice I'd curled against before, and I said, it would be nice to be out there right now. And he says, this isn't just your Olympics. He says to me, as an athlete, he goes, it's our Olympics too. And I said, okay, that's a pretty good way to look at things. So, so the guys who run the cable, the guys who run the cameras, the guys who put the mics on, the person I worked for in Rio, actually, her husband is one of the technical guys who puts microphones on people, and they look forward to the Olympics as much as the athletes do, which I thought that was a real eye opener for me. It's like, okay, I have to kind of change the way I look at things, and I've shared that with I've got 3 kids, and one's a competitive swimmer, and I said one of the 3 I managed to trick into curling, which is good, and I just said to them all, it's like, listen, whatever you want to do, it doesn't really matter, but you have to just try to do it with purpose, and don't be curling. Curling's a very listen. The Olympics is a tough thing to get to. So if you're gonna do what you're doing, you're gonna be out here and competing and playing and trying to be your best. Make sure you enjoy it, because if you're not enjoying it, it's not worth it. I hate to find something you enjoy and get out there and start doing it. The microphone it means what it means to you as an athlete. It means that you're in an important game. If you're wearing a microphone, it means that there's a little bit of added pressure. If you're wearing a microphone, there's a little bit of discomfort, but it's also exactly where you want to be, right? This is if you get to a point where you have a microphone in front of your face and somebody's asking you a question about curling or about your team or about what it means to be at an event, don't give them a stock answer. That's the only thing I can say. It's if you want to figure out a way to make it uncomfortable for your opponents, which is what this is all about. Right? When you get to a certain level, you just want to be the person out there that handles things the best. There's nothing more disconcerting than playing against somebody who looks more relaxed than you are, looks more comfortable than you are. So think of all these events you guys play in as a rehearsal to kind of get to that next stage. So the microphone, when the mic is on, like I said before, it's always on. You can't get away from it. But what you can use it as a rather than thinking of the pressures and the negatives of it, think about how great it is that you are now in such an important game where people want to televise it. You're going to have people who want to watch it, which is great. And it even goes all the way back down to, we said this event in Oakville that we're playing in, they're going to be streaming it. And Brian Kojiko's coming in to broadcast the finals. So whether it's Sportsnet or Kojiko or a local stream, a local feed. I know guys, Steve Laycock's team from Saskatchewan, they actually stream all their own games now. So you're all, there's tons of you guys have way more exposure to wearing a microphone than I ever had. The first one I ever put on was at the Canadian Juniors. And I really, same thing, I really just wasn't ready for it. We got televised on TSN and great. And all those thoughts I was talking about, like, well, geez, I got to watch my mouth now, and where do I put the pack, and how do you, like, you guys stand in the, and I know I've had conversations with your third, or if this front, I'm a skip, I can't really relate to front end, so just, I don't know what you guys talk about down there at the front end, but my third and I, we would have all kinds of conversations that had nothing to do with curling, but now when the microphone's on, all of a sudden you're self-conscious about it, and that's really not what you want to be doing. So I said, think of even the basic stuff out on the ice. You want to make sure that that you're preparing yourselves for it. So, like I said, the pressures are that I said. The good news is you're in a very important game. The bad news is what you say, what you do, sometimes gets scrutinized by people outside of your circle. So you've got your team and the 5 of you who would review your game. So I'm probably a lot of you have worked the video already, but all of a sudden, once a game gets put onto television, there's that little bit added pressure of now other people get to see what we do in our world, in our circle. So the importance of the game is ramped up generally if you're in a televised game, and the nerves tend to be higher, like I said. But these all seem bad, but the really good news is, and you can take great comfort in the fact that, like I said before, you're exactly where you should be, where you want to be. And also the thing that gets overlooked quite often in these situations, that the other team is in the exact same boat you're in. I took great comfort in that. Olympic trials final, 97, I said we were nervous. We were playing Kevin Martin. Kevin had won the Brier the year before, been on, skins games and all that other sort of stuff. So first thing that happened in the very first end, we had the hammer. We threw it in the house, and then he hit it. And then it just kind of instantly hit me. It's like, okay, he's not going to throw the center guard or throw the corner guard and put some pressure on us. He decided that he's just going to hit. And I said, okay, that's great news. And I kind of was relieved because all of a sudden I felt, you know what? He feels the exact same way that I do. He's nervous. And I said, I took great comfort in that. So that's as a coach, the coaches here, remind your teammates or remind your players that when they get into this situation, it's exactly that case. It's a very rare athlete that can go into a televised event for the first time, and a lot of you will be going through this for the first time, or even the first or second time. And even if you've been there before, it's not always easy. It's not like you wear every game you're wearing a microphone pack. But just remember, the other teams are feeling the same thing as well. And I said, the fun part is as I said, the most successful athletes in those situations to me are the ones who are the most relaxed. And Glenn Howard, great example of someone who just appears relaxed all the time. Brad Jacobs, not a guy who looks relaxed out there. But if you ask Brad, just because he's intense, doesn't mean that's his comfort zone. So, I think being elite level junior curlers right now, and I said moving up in probably a lot of you in university, I'm assuming, and moving up into the senior ranks, we'll call it. When it appears that the people that have been around for a long time are much more comfortable, I can tell you that's not entirely the case. I played in the provincials last year for the first time in 7 years, and I had to stand on the other side of the microphone for the first time in a long time, and I felt it. Exactly what all the stuff I'm telling you guys about. Okay, we're on TV, I gotta watch what I'm saying. I watch what I'm saying when I have this microphone, I'm talking to you guys. That's not a problem for me. But when this thing, I get frustrated with my teammates, I get frustrated with the ice, or miss shots, or all this sort of stuff. So you got to you mutter under your breath a little bit. But when the mic is on, you're in a good spot. And I wish that I was back at your age, knew then what I know now. We said we never learned any of this stuff, and it's only the hard way. We call it learning the hard way. But with the coaching programs you guys have now, and I said the access to internet and live streaming and all this sort of stuff, I mean, you're way more used to it than I ever was. Enjoy your year. It's early. It's still September. Don't live and die with this bonspiel. But I'm glad it's here. I'm glad the Junior Slam Series, and congratulations to both of you for starting this up. I think it's long overdue. So enjoy your season, and hopefully we'll see you guys on the ice somewhere. Don't beat me too bad if we do. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks.
That was awesome. Awesome.